Hi, everyone. Welcome to our a smart and connected workplace with G Suite. We're actually going to talk a lot about machine learning and AI, so we had a very deceptive name, but hopefully you're here in the right session. If you're looking for something else, let us know. Hopefully everyone has been having a good time so far. Yeah? All right, awesome. My name's Ritcha, Ranjan. I'm a product management director in G Suite, and I'm here with several colleagues, and we're going to spend some time talking to you today about, just in general, about ML and AI, and then we're going to go into some specifics around how G Suite really views and uses these tools in our products and what we're really aiming to do. So quick pop quiz. I'm going to try and make this a little interactive because I know everyone's looking at the post-lunch coma here. Any guesses on how much data is produced per day? Any guesses? You can't be wrong. Nobody? Come on. A petabyte, okay. Anyone else? So it's 2.5 quintillion bytes of data a day. So just put that into context. Anyone know what this is? You guys are a little slow this morning. This is interactive. This is the Milky Way. There are about 250 billion stars in the Milky Way. So we're adding about 100 million Milky Ways worth of data every day. And that pace is actually only increasing. In fact, IDC predicts that by 2025, there will be about 163 zettabytes of data. Let's put that in context again of the Milky Way. That is 652 billion Milky Ways worth of data. That is an astronomical number. And that data, it's all going to be out there. All out there for companies to use and leverage and to help them make better business decisions. But today, few companies are able to take advantage of all the information that they have access to. And as we've spoken to customers, there's been three main problems that have arose in our discussions. The first is that customers find that the data is siloed. So it might be public data, it might be data that you have in your ERP system, it might be data that you're collecting from some IoT sensors, but it's in different places. And how do you access all of that data into one tool? Let's pretend you get it into one tool. The second problem companies face is that data is often dirty. So let's say you have a customer key in one data set that may not map to the same customer key in another data set. The third problem companies face is that the tools needed to take this data, analyze it, clean it, make it into something that they can really use often requires either specialized tools or specialized skills. And not every employee has those specialized skills. So the result is that companies aren't able to take full advantage of the data and make data-driven decisions. But yet we know that companies that are able to leverage the insights gleaned from this information and intelligence are well positioned to leapfrog their competition. In fact, according to a recent study from Bain, companies that use machine learning and analytics are 2 times more likely to make data-driven decisions. That makes them 5 times more likely to make decisions faster than their competition, and 3 times more likely to execute faster on those decisions. So you're making better decisions and executing on them faster. That's what all companies are looking for. But it's not obvious on how you can take advantage of all these powerful capabilities. But we feel Google can really help here. So let's take a step back. Why Google? Why is Google so good at AI? Well, in a nutshell, Google has been investing in machine learning for years. Way before it was the cool, hot new thing, we were there. Where were we? Well, let's start with search. That's the heart and core of Google. That's where we started. In 2017, we published a stat saying that 15% of search queries daily are new. That means that 15% of queries that are sent to Google servers have never been seen before, and yet we're able to return relevant results. That's because of machine learning. Let's take another example. How many people have used Google Translate before? It's a fabulous service. And in general, when people used to build translation services, what you would do is you would write a bunch of rules to translate from one language to another. Google took a different approach. We used our neural machine translation system, and that approach has enabled us to do something called zero-shot translation, which means that we can translate between pairs of languages that we haven't trained on or seen before. So if we do English to Japanese training, and then we train another model on, let's say, English to Korean, we're actually able to translate between Japanese and Korean without having trained the model. So that's the power of these systems that we're able to build. Being an early leader in AI and being able to spend the time there has enabled us to do a number of different things. The first is that we have become very strong in terms of our privacy policies. You heard Thomas talk about it this morning. If you attended the G Suite session with Suzanne Frey, you heard her talk a lot about it. Your data is your data. We respect your privacy policies, and we respect the fact that that is your confidential information. The AI expertise that we've built have also helped us build out custom ML hardware, and that's given us an advantage in terms of speed and the ability to do things like I talked about with the zero-shot translations. And finally, because we own the hardware down to the software, we're able to build integrated solutions and give customers and users the best experience possible. So let's jump back to the enterprise, because that's what we're here to talk about. So G Suite can really help you become data-centric. Businesses that democratize access to data and give users the ability to analyze and make decisions, regardless of whether they're a data scientist or not, are going to have a competitive advantage. How do we do this? Well, we need to make sure that users can collect, clean, analyze, visualize, and share the results with their teams. Ryan's going to come up in a little while and talk a bit more about what we're doing there, but that is an area that we're really focused on. Because if we can bring you those insights and suggest visualizations and data and information to you, that's going to help you do what you care about. Not analyzing the data, that's not what you care about. Acting on the insights from that analysis, that's what you care about. But in G Suite, we're trying to move beyond just one thing. We want to help you in multiple ways. Not just to make better data-driven decisions, but we want to help you in your daily workflows. Imagine how much time we can save you if we can cut out steps in your workflow. So let's take a great example. Anyone have any idea how many meetings the average employee does in a week? Too many, I agree with you. Any quantitative number? We're talking about data-driven decisions here. How many quantitatively do you think people have? 27? Any other guesses? 15? Okay, so according to Atlassian, 63. I think they're looking at my calendar probably on that one. That's a lot of meetings. And so imagine if G Suite could help you streamline the process of that meeting. So what's the first thing you do when you have a meeting? You got to set it up, right? You have to get everyone, figure out what time works, and then put it on a calendar. Well, with Google G Suite Calendar, find a time. We make that super simple. You just need to add the names of who you want in the meeting, and Calendar will actually suggest a time that works for all the people in the meeting. It'll even suggest a meeting room. Let's say you've scheduled the meeting, and now the day has come for this big meeting. As you're walking to the meeting, Drive Quick Access will actually suggest the presentation that you need to give at that meeting. So in one click, you can bring up that presentation instead of digging and hunting for it. And then finally, let's pretend you're in the meeting and you're taking notes in Google Docs, which is a product I work on, so of course you're using that one. As you take the notes, let's pretend you put in an action item for someone on your team. Ryan is going to call Vishnu. Well, Google Docs will automatically find that action item, highlight it, and actually realize that Ryan is the owner of that task. He needs to accomplish something. So it will suggest that you create an action item for Ryan to call Vishnu. If you accept that action item, it will send Ryan an email saying, hey, you need to call Vishnu. And so we're streamlining the ability to do all of this work that surrounds a meeting and making that workflow, removing steps from it. So again, if you go back to 62 meetings a week, imagine how much time you save if you have to do this over and over and over again. So that's what we're going to talk about. We're going to dive into a number of different pillars around how G Suite is using AI and ML to help you in these different areas. The first is going to be about finding the right information. How do you get to that information when you need it? The second area is going to be around analyzing and extracting the insights. Remember, all that data, the zettabytes of data. Third one's going to be about documenting and sharing the information with your team. And finally, we're going to spend some time on how we're making meetings and collaboration more effective. So to kick us off, I'd like to invite my colleague, Julie Black.
All right, thanks everyone. My name's Julie. I work closely with Ritcha on the product team for G Suite. So I'm going to start by kicking us off and talking a little bit to you about how we're simplifying the finding experience. Let me give you a bit of context around why this is a big and meaty problem before I sort of dive into some of our features. So according to a study by the University of California, Irvine, the average employee switches context every 3 minutes. They get interrupted. 3 minutes. How many of you guys were interrupted in the last 3 minutes? Yeah, see? It's not crazy, right? Net, that adds up to 28 billion lost hours of productivity per year and over $1 trillion of value lost to the US economy. That's huge. And that happens just because folks are bouncing between task to task, looking for things, moving back and forth, getting bombarded with pings, all sorts of those problems. We think this is something that we can help solve. And that's why we built Cloud Search. So Cloud Search is a product that brings together all of your company's data at your fingertips. It's got privacy and security that meets the business need, and it's powered by machine learning. Think of Cloud Search as bringing the best of Google.com into the enterprise. How does it work? Well, core to our approach is enabling you to index all of your data, wherever it lives, in a single index that's ACL sensitive, right, that has the ACLs that enterprise needs in the cloud. We've got a rich connector ecosystem of close to about 100 connectors and a very strong partner network that helps us bring together data from public sources, enterprise sources, as well as first-party G Suite. SDKs allowed enterprises to build the solutions that they would like on the right-hand side here. So think of it as flowing into a portal or a CRM map or whatever the enterprise imagines. With Cloud Search, you get the power of Google and the single pane of glass that allows you to have access to all of your enterprise data. Moving forward, Ritcha mentioned Quick Access. So Quick Access is a product that is in Drive. It brings together at the top of Drive, providing support for you to find the documents that you need most at the moment that you need them. Our research has shown that through Quick Access, we've been able to cut finding time by 50%. And all those seconds that we're saving in the finding time, when you sum that up, that saves about 850 work weeks every single day. That's massive impact, just through that one product. We've extended Quick Access to include this Drive priority page and introduced the concepts of Workspaces at the bottom. Workspaces is a place where you can aggregate together all of the content that you might need for an individual project. Remember how I talked about context switching? Workspaces should save you from having to do that, because all the files that you need for that one project are going to be in one place. And guess what? We use machine learning to help collect those all together and figure out which ones fit together. We use signals like key collaborators, email, chat, sharing, and content topicality to do that. Finally, we've also brought search directly into the docs experience, right? So now, let's say you're writing a document for an important topic, right? Maybe it's a proposal for a talk that you're going to be giving. You don't even need to go outside of that document to look for the content that you need. It's right there in the sidebar through Quick Access so that you can find it without having to switch tabs. It allows you to surface documents. It allows you to have access to relevant documents right in the workflow. So with that, I'm going to hand it to Vishnu and Ryan, who are going to show you some of these features in action.
So what we're going to show you today is a real-life scenario. Ryan is having a pretty tough day. He was just pinged this morning by his manager, who happens to be Ritcha. And Ritcha said, we need to have a really great deck to go for this surprise session tomorrow. So Ryan's going to have to pull this all together. Good luck, Ryan. Now, the great thing with Cloud Search is that it's woven into multiple experiences across G Suite. What Ryan is trying to do now is find this existing deck to just get started. And as you can see here, all he has to do is just type the name, and it all just shows up right within the Chrome Omnibox. So what you're seeing here is the power of Google Cloud Search built into Chrome. So he's going to go ahead and open Project Alpha, which is a presentation that he's going to work from. As you can see, this is a deck that him and his team have been working on, and in fact, we have a couple of teammates actually in the deck right now, if you look at the top right. Ryan's now gonna open up Cloud Search from within Slides. What Ryan can do here is look at relevant information without leaving Slides. So here, he wants to go and pull a piece of revenue information from Sheets. So he's gonna go ahead and type the name of the sheet that he wants to pull from, and you'll see that the results show up right within Google Slides. You may also notice that some of this data is actually exports from Salesforce, which goes back to the idea that Cloud Search indexes all of your data, not just data that may reside with G Suite. All right, so he wants to now go back and put together the agenda for a meeting he's about to have in the next hour. So let's switch over to Docs. In Google Docs, we've actually built something called Quick Access. So within Explore, you have the power to see relevant information across all of your documents without having to type a single query. So as you can see here, Ryan just opened up Explore, and he has all the relevant information that he needs. But in some cases, you may still want to search for something that's not related to the document, and we've made that experience even more powerful. We've recently built natural language processing into Explore in Google Docs. So Ryan can make a query like documents or presentations shared with me in the last month, and you'll see that the results show up right there. We're able to take the query, convert it to the exact query that returns the results that he is looking for. This is just a small peek into how Cloud Search can be used as you make your best work with Docs, Slides, and multiple G Suite products. With that, I'm gonna let Ryan take it away to talk about Google Sheets. Let's switch back to the slides, please.
Thank you, Vishnu. Okay, great. So as Vishnu mentioned, my name is Ryan. I lead the Sheets team, and I'll be talking a bit about extracting and synthesizing insights via Sheets. So within Sheets, we're all about democratizing data, and we think about that by looking at the analytical workflow. And so that comes in several stages. So there is the collect phase, right? This is about taking the data, wherever it may live, bringing it into Sheets so that you can do something with it, right? The next phase is preparing that data, right? So taking the raw data in its raw form and cleaning it, formatting it, getting it ready to do the next part, which is the analyze phase. And here's where you're writing your formulas, you are creating your pivot tables, and you are creating your charts to visualize the data and really to get to those insights, right? That's what you're ultimately trying to achieve, is to get to those insights. Now, once you have those insights, you then can share it out. And so we make it very easy to share it both with your collaborators, so they can work with you, as well as to share to your leadership teams, for example, Ritcha, so that they can look at it and they can see all the great insights that you found. Now, all of this is built on top of our real-time collaboration framework, which makes G Suite in general so powerful, and is really why our customers love working with Sheets and G Suite so much. So let's talk a bit about ways we brought AI into Sheets. So we have Explore, and really this has been a powerful feature we launched a few years ago. And what it does is it can do things like suggesting charts to you, suggesting pivot tables, giving you numbers, to save you time from even writing any analysis yourself. More recently, we've added answers, which is the ability to ask natural language questions. In this case here, what is the average revenue per region? And what you'll see, what it gives me back is a pivot table. I didn't even use the words pivot table. Maybe I don't even know what a pivot table is. But just by asking the question, it figures out the best way to format that data. And then with one click, I can insert that into my sheets. It's very simple to do analysis this way. And so here we have Colgate. They're a 200-year-old company. They've really embraced Explore in Sheets. And so a quote here from Mitch Cohen, a senior manager there. He says, with Explore in Sheets, everyone can bring data into the decision making. Users can just type in a question and get an answer immediately about their data, right? So again, we want to democratize data, make it very simple to get to those insights very quickly. We've also recently launched formula suggestions. And so here the idea is, let's say you have data in your sheet, and you type an equal sign underneath your data. What we can do is we'll actually suggest formulas to you. So we'll, based on what you have input in the sheet already, we can suggest both the formulas and the ranges of data right to you, again, saving you time. And so what we're seeing is for suggestions that are provided to the user, they're making users 5 times faster to get to those insights, right? So they're saving time, making fewer mistakes by not having to manually type out those formulas. And so again, it's a pretty powerful way of bringing AI into Sheets. Now, having AI on top of Sheets is very important, but really, you also need access to the right data. And so first and foremost, making sure that you can connect to the data that you need to do your analysis on is pretty mission critical. And so for that, we announced today the connected sheet. And so really, this is about using the simplicity of a spreadsheet with the power and scale of BigQuery, right? And so we want to make sure that for those who can use a spreadsheet but don't necessarily know how to write SQL, we want to give them the friendly interface of their friendly neighborhood spreadsheet on top of billions of rows that might live in BigQuery. So again, we announced this today. It's currently in alpha. And I can go on and on about showing you through slides, but rather than doing that, let's actually do a demo and see how this works. So let's jump back over to the demo machine, please. All right, so I'm going to type in sheets.new. For those of you who haven't seen that, that's a fast way to get to a new spreadsheet. And so here we have a sheet. All right, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to go to the data menu. And within the data menu, we have these data connectors. And so here we have this new item called the connected sheet. So I click on this. What I'll do is I'll bring up my cloud projects. And so I'll click on my cloud project. This is where the data lives. And I'm going to click on my retail data set. And here is a grocery transactions table. So if I click on this and hit connect, what you're going to notice is I didn't write any SQL. I just clicked on the table, and I get back my data. So now I'm seeing the data in Sheets. And what I can do now is I can see here that there's transaction IDs, transaction dates, product names, et cetera. But just having the preview of my data is not enough. Really, where the rubber meets the road is by doing analysis on this data. And so for that, I have three options. I can create charts, pivot tables, and functions. And so we provide your functions that you might know and love. We can do that to do analysis. So let's take a look at that. If I jump into sheet 1 here, let's say I'm curious about the number of products in my table here. So to do that, I'm going to write a count unique function. So count unique. And I'll start typing the name of my table. It does autocomplete. If I go down to product names here, I'll just tab into that. And so now it said it's ready to go, ready to run this against the full data set, against the full set of data in my database. Hit apply changes. And lo and behold, we get 1,300 products. So again, I didn't write any SQL. I just wrote a Sheets formula. And if again, looking back at my table here, and this went through 128 million rows of data. Right? This is a massive set of data here. So it's 128 million rows by, 20 or so columns. So we're talking over 1 billion cells worth of data. It just crunched through and came back with that number pretty quickly. So formulas are fun, and I can go on about formulas. Let's now jump over to a pivot table. So I'll click on this, insert that into a new sheet. Get my pivot table placeholder on the left, and on the right, this is how I configure my pivot table. I can add rows, columns, values, and filters. So for rows, let's see, what do I want to answer? I want to ask the question, how are my products selling? How does that vary by region? So for my rows, then let's pick my products. So I'll go in here, I'll pick my product names. And then for columns, I want to do a breakout by region to see if there's any difference there. So columns, I get my options here. Let's go down to, oops, picked the wrong one there, sorry. Columns, I want to go down to store region. And for values, let's see how it varies by quantity. So how quantity is different. So we'll do a sum of that. Let's show it as a percentage of the row so I can see that across by each product. Okay, so this looks good. I see it's going to process around 4 gigabytes of data. That's a lot of data. I'll hit apply. Now again, it's going to run this against the full 100 million rows of data in Sheets. And so, did I hit apply? There we go. All right, so let me just expand this out here so we can see a little better. To make this a little easier to read, I'm just going to highlight my data here. Again, it's just a Sheets pivot table, so I can do regular Sheets operations. So let's change the precision. I'll apply some conditional formatting to make it a little easier to read. We can apply color scale to make different values pop. And so let's make the higher values dark green, lower values will be white. All right, so let's scroll to the top and see if we see anything emerging here. Okay, so I'm seeing some darker regions. It looks like in the Northeast region, it looks like different kinds of cheeses seem to be more popular, so that's interesting. I see here in the Southeast items with different types of seafood and fish look to be dark green. And then it looks like I'm seeing some apples that seem to be popular in the Central region. Okay, so now I'm trying to figure out how to shift my inventory around, how to maximize where to put different products. I now know which regions to do that. So that's an insight that I've gleaned by using the simplicity of a pivot table against my massive data set in BigQuery. Okay, so the final thing I want to show is how to use charts. So we want to visualize this. Visualizing is a pretty important part of the analytical workflow. So let me click on charts here. and I will insert that into a new sheet. I get my chart editor on the right here, and I get all the different sheets, chart types that we all know and love. So let's start off, and I want to know whether or not there's any sort of seasonal pattern if grocery transactions vary by month. So to answer that, let's just leave it as a column chart, that's fine. For the x-axis, let's pick my transaction date. And then I have this option called grouping by, and so I can choose different ways to sort of sum up the raw date and timestamp. So let's look at it by month to see if there's any, again, seasonal pattern by month. So that looks good, so let's hit apply now and see what happens. And, oops, sorry, I need to pick my, my series. So my series, let's make this sales sum, sorry. There we go. All right, there we go. So now what I'm seeing is my grocery transactions by month. Doesn't seem to be that much variability. That makes sense. You wouldn't think of groceries being a very seasonal product. So instead of looking at it by month, let's now change this. Instead of looking at it by month, let's look at it by day of the week to see if there's any sort of intra-week kind of seasonality. So I'll hit apply again. And there we go. So now what we're looking at is I see that on the weekends, it looks like there is a spike in sales on Saturdays and Sundays. And so now if I'm trying to figure out how to staff up my stores, maybe I shift my salespeople to the weekends to handle the increase in demand. So again, this chug through 100 million rows of data, again, just using the simplicity of a spreadsheet on top of BigQuery. So that's a quick demo of Big Sheets. So we'll jump back now to the slides.
Great. I'm now going to talk a little bit about writing. And writing is important because it's such a core activity to work. We put words on paper to refine our own thinking at times, but also just to communicate with others. But this is a process that we know requires a ton of effort, and it's also error-prone. So we're thinking about two ways to assist users with this, helping you write better and helping you write faster. Let's start with the former. The first thing that we did is we wanted to understand what are the critical user needs here, and we found something pretty interesting. We found that our user base in Google Docs was trying to correct spelling and grammar by themselves very, very often, and we found that more than half of the Docs user base was doing this. And this is interesting because we already have spelling in the product, but we hadn't invested in grammar, so we saw a high potential for addressing pain points here. Now, let's talk a little bit about spelling correction. We've taken a pretty googly approach to this fairly simple feature. This was our first foundation in terms of language correction in Google Docs, and the neat thing is that it leverages the power of Google Search, and in particular Googlebot, which is our web crawling bot. What this means really is that our suggestions get smarter every single day as we explore the web and discover new web pages. And here are a couple of examples about how that works. First, the suggestions are contextual. You'll see in this example that the user has made the same typo twice in the same sentence, but our spell check is smart enough to suggest two different things based on the context. This is pretty subtle, and it happens without the user having to know about what's going on. Next, we also are smart enough to know that even if your sentence has all words in a dictionary, that may still mean that there's still a mistake. Some of the spell check tools out there just check to see if your word is in a dictionary, and then they say, job done. But we know that you may have used a word in the dictionary the wrong way, and we're smart enough to be able to correct that as well. And finally, we know that the world and knowledge is constantly evolving, and our spell check evolves as well. As we discover new terms on the web, as words get new meanings, we are able to understand that and make that available to users without any additional steps. Now, grammar correction is much, much harder. And the big reason is that it's just much more subjective and it's much more complex. It's a complex set of rules as opposed to checking to see if words are in a dictionary. And it's so complex that even professional linguists disagree on correct grammar. About a quarter of the time, when they see grammar mistakes, they actually come up with different suggestions for what should be corrected. So this is a problem that's a good fit for machine learning, not so much for rules or heuristics. And in particular, it's a technology known as machine translation. So Ritcha talked about neural machine translation, where we are translating from one language to another. Here, we're basically saying, look, incorrect grammar is a language and correct grammar is another language. And let's just translate between the two, which is a pretty interesting approach, and we found worked really well for this problem. We announced just last month that we've launched this to all G Suite users. And we'd like to pre-announce that we're going to bring this functionality to more G Suite products, starting with the Gmail product. Stay tuned for that. Speaking of email, let's dig into why emails are such a big problem. Emails are a huge time sink for organizations. Knowledge workers spend about a third of their day either reading email, sifting through email, or sending emails. And they spend about 650 hours a year. I'm getting my scales wrong. But not only emails are a huge time sink, it turns out that emails at work, when you're trying to be professional or trying to sound more formal, are very hard to write. And this is where we spend a lot of our time. We've been thinking through how to bring assistive capabilities to email, and we started on this journey with Smart Reply, which now contributes to more than 10% of all replies from mobile. But the vision of the team was much grander. We wanted to build autocomplete for email. And there are a lot of challenges, and I'm going to just talk about two. One is latency. Now, this is a feature that's all about saving time while you're typing quickly on the go. If the suggestions did not show up quickly enough, it was just not going to be used. It's not a useful feature. And the magic number was about 100 milliseconds. Secondly, Gmail is used by more than 1 billion users, and all of us write very differently. And we needed to solve the problem of coming up with a model that catered to all of these different diverse needs. Critical to this was turning research into practice and having a strong story about leveraging both software and hardware. So we use something known as a TPU, or a tensor processing unit. And what TPUs allow us to do is to use more sophisticated and powerful machine learning models. And we're also able to use these both for training as well as serving, so that users can get intelligence results more rapidly. But let's dig into that, what that means. Now, before we switched to TPUs, we had the feature running on CPUs. And the initial version of Smart Compose had a serving latency of about hundreds of milliseconds. And this was not acceptable for this feature. So we switched over to using TPUs, and we saw a huge gain in latency. So we were offloading the task of inference to TPUs, and we were able to take this, the inference time down to about 80 milliseconds. And last year, we announced TPUs v2, and as a result of switching over to that latest hardware, we were able to drop this down a further 50%, which is very incredible. We announced last week that Smart Compose now saves users 1 billion characters a week. We have more languages coming soon. We're going to launch Smart Compose in Spanish, Portuguese, Italian, French. We're also bringing this to mobile. And finally, we're also going to adapt Smart Compose to learn about the way you write. For example, if you happen to be more colloquial in emails and you say, "Hey, team," we'll help you stay true to your voice. It can even suggest a subject line based on the body of the message. So let's switch over to a demo so we can show you these things in action. I'm going to invite Ryan back up here. So here's a document that Ryan has been working on. It's a very important proposal. And it just so happens that he's made a couple of spelling mistakes. So you can see that it shows up in the document as red underlines. Ryan's now going to go ahead and turn on spelling and grammar. And just for the purposes of the demo, we originally had this off. But if you've been using Google Docs, we've turned it on for you. And you can see now that you'll see blue underlines where where Ryan has made grammatical mistakes. You'll also notice, if you deep dive, that some of these mistakes are very hard to catch with a set of rules. If we had taken a rules-based approach, we'd be writing hundreds of thousands or even millions of rules. But these subjective rules have been built into the machine translation model. Let's now switch over to Gmail. And Ryan's going to walk us through the email that he's about to write.
Great, thank you, Vishnu. All right, so let me send, I want to send an email to Susan. So let me add her there. I want to send her an email about the Project Alpha presentation for tomorrow. So Project Alpha presentation. All right, how about dear Susan? Oh, okay, great. Hope you are well. Okay, thank you. Please see the link for the presentation. Great. For tomorrow. All right, how about please let me know if you have any questions, great, or concerns. Awesome. All right, kind regards. Oh, I gotta be a better typer. Ryan. Pretty easy. Send.
That was pretty amazing. I think Ryan typed, 5 words, but your email was like 100 words. Yep. So this is just a sneak peek into assisted writing, and stay tuned for more to come from G Suite in this space. And with that, I'd like to hand it back to Julie to talk about meetings. Let's switch back to the slides, please.
Okay, so last but not least, let's talk about meetings and how we're using AI and intelligence to make them even better. So if you go to google.com and do a search for meetings are, this is what you see. A waste of time, toxic. Here's my favorite one, where ideas go to die. Useless. There's a lot of opportunity for improvement here, right? How many of you have had a bad meeting in the last week? The last 2 weeks? Maybe I can get everybody's hands up? Okay. Yes, lots of opportunity. There's a couple key reasons why this often happens. They're poorly organized, maybe the audio's bad, the video's bad, you can't see each other. I could stand here probably all day and list lots of reasons. But it's a place where we believe there's lots of opportunity for innovation. So for us at Google, meeting culture is a personal one. We've grown very, very quickly as an organization. In early 2000, we had only 3,000 people at the company. And we're now over 90,000 employees in 70 offices across 50 countries. We made a big bet as a company in 2003 to go big on video and make sure that we could connect everybody and get the best collaborative experience across the organization. That's why we've built G Suite's Meeting Solutions. G Suite's Meeting Solutions provide an opportunity for all organizations, whether large or small, to have a video-first meeting culture. Our suite of products includes Hangouts Meet, Meet Hardware, and Jamboard. And it's the same technology that we use for video conferencing here at Google. Inside our company, Meet Hardware is now standard in all of our conference rooms. Let's look at some of the steps that it takes to schedule a meeting, and Ritcha talked about some of these, right? And what we're doing with AI to make that better. Scheduling. Scheduling can be a pain, right? Because it's often hard to find a time that works for everybody or a place that works for everybody and get everybody kind of collaborating in the same way. So we want to use AI to help solve that problem for you. We've built automatic room suggestions to help intelligently find conference rooms for you based on lots of signals. Who's attending the meeting? Where are they located? What's the right conference room size for all of the attendees, and so on. We've also built a Meet scheduling bot that sits inside Hangouts chat to find available times to make it easy to do scheduling. This morning in the keynote, we announced that we're bringing the Google Assistant, we're integrating the Google Assistant with Calendar so that on the go, you can answer key questions like, what's on my agenda on Friday, or when's my next meeting with, I guess, me, or I wouldn't be meeting with myself, but maybe with Ritcha. Google Assistant has changed the way that people get things done in their personal life, and now we're bringing this to work to help you manage your calendar on the go. We've also brought intelligence that happens directly in the meeting room. So adaptive video layouts automatically understand the meeting context and show you the right view to keep you connected and engaged. As a few examples, Brady Bunch view, that one right there, is great when there's lots of active people talking. But maybe that's not happening, and maybe one individual is presenting, so that's this next view here, and it allows you to sort of get the context of the presentation alongside whoever is talking at the moment. And then finally, if it's just a few folks sitting in a single conference room by themselves, we can be smart about that too and show you the whole presentation. We've also announced live captions for the meeting room. And with this, we're bringing Google's state-of-the-art speech recognition technology to enable real-time captioning of meetings as they happen. This is a great improvement that enables deaf and hard of hearing to follow along. So we're really, really excited about this, and it's going to be an opportunity for everyone to participate in meetings. And finally, we're looking to extend upon some of these features and provide even more in-meeting assistance. We've already pre-announced voice actions in the meeting room, so you can do things like join a meeting, or call someone into the meeting, or leave the meeting. And we're excited to continue down this path and see what the future holds. So with that, we will do a demo.
All right, so Ryan's finally done with this deck, and he's ready to meet. So what we're going to show you is a meet call right here. So it's easy to join a meet call. You just go to calendar, and it's a single click to get into the video call. So let's go ahead and click that. Ryan's going to do something different this time, which is before he joins a call, he's going to turn on captions.
There's the, right there, got it. Captions.
All right, let's give this a go.
Hello, everybody. Are you there?
Hi.
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 Great. Thanks for joining today.
Sure.
Thanks for having us.
All right, shall we get started?
Great, ready to get started.
I'm on my way to the office now. I was working from home this morning, but I'm still ready to chat.
Ooh, yeah, there was a lot of traffic this morning, so that's a good call that we, take a remote meeting like this.
Yikes, I heard about that too. Anyway, let's start talking about our presentation coming up.
All right, great. Well, thanks, everybody. I think we'll stop it there. But I think we see here the power of live captions makes it easy to see who said what, and so you'll never miss a thing again. So with that, we'll turn it back over to Vishnu.
Thanks, Ryan. So I hope you all notice a couple of things here. One is this was a super stressful demo to do, so you're welcome. The second thing is that we're leveraging power of Google transcription, which of course you're all familiar with from the Google Assistant. But you'll also notice that as teammates were speaking, we were going back and updating the transcription. So we were looking ahead, looking at what was said, and then updating the previous transcription. So there's a lot going on behind the scenes, and stay tuned again for more to come to this space. So just to recap, we showed you the power of cloud search, how we're helping you with assisting data analysis in Sheets, assisted writing, and finally, meetings. So I hope we were able to give you a sneak peek into all of the amazing things we're building with AI in G Suite. And with that, I'd like to invite Julie to close the session.
All right, so like Vishnu said, what we showed you was a small peek into some of the things that we're bringing to G Suite with AI. G Suite is an amazing suite of tools that allows enterprises to be as productive as possible, to take full advantage of all of the information that may be at their fingertips within the organization. 74% of the time spent in docs, sheets, and slides is on collaborative work. That is multiple people creating and editing content together. This is a stark difference from what businesses see with legacy tools, where work is often done individually and on the desktop client. We believe that G Suite provides the opportunity for businesses to truly transform the way that they work, and we've seen tremendous adoption. To date, we have over 5 million paying customers on G Suite, and we are excited to welcome hopefully many more in the future. So with that, I want to say thank you, and we will stick around afterwards if there's any questions, and please leave some feedback for us.